What if I told you that the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, isn't actually federal or a reserve? Intriguing, isn't it? This behemoth, the Federal Reserve, stands as a monolith in the landscape of the American economy, yet it is shrouded in a cloak of mystery. It's a misunderstood entity, an enigma that has left many puzzled, questioning its true nature. This is the tale of a shadowy institution, a story that's as fascinating as it is elusive. Let us unravel the story of the Federal Reserve from its inception to the present day. Our journey begins in the early 20th century, a time of financial instability and economic uncertainty in America. Enter the world of the early 1900s. It was an era marked by a roller coaster of economic highs and lows, and the United States was caught in the midst of it. The country was rapidly industrializing, growing, and expanding. But with growth came growing pains. The economy was volatile and the banking system was fragmented and uncoordinated. This lack of a centralized system was a significant contributor to the economic instability of the time. Among the many financial crises of this era, the Panic of 1907 stands out. A stock market crash, a run on the banks, and a subsequent credit crunch brought the economy to its knees. It was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the fragility of the American financial system. The Panic of 1907 highlighted the need for a more structured and regulated banking system, a system that could withstand economic shocks and ensure financial stability. In the aftermath of this economic upheaval, the idea of a central bank started to gain traction. Thought leaders, politicians and economists began to see the value of a central banking system that could control the money supply, manage interest rates, and act as the lender of last resort. These discussions culminated in the drafting of the Federal Reserve Act, a groundbreaking piece of legislation that aimed to establish a central banking system in the United States. After much debate and negotiation, the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson on December 23, 1913. This act led to the creation of the Federal Reserve System, a decentralized central bank designed to provide the country with a safer, more flexible and more stable monetary and financial system. And thus the Federal Reserve was born, a beacon of stability in a turbulent economic landscape. You may wonder, who were the original owners of this powerful institution? The Federal Reserve, often shrouded in layers of complexity, is a unique entity in the global financial landscape. Its ownership structure is unlike any other, a fascinating blend of private ownership and public oversight. The Federal Reserve is not a monolithic entity, but rather a system of 12 regional reserve banks spread across the United States, each serving its own particular geographic area. These reserve banks are owned by private banks within their districts. Yes, you heard it right. The Federal Reserve is owned by the very banks it oversees. This might sound like a conflict of interest, but the system is designed to ensure a balance of power and prevent any one entity from having too much control. Each member bank, as they're known, holds stock in its respective Federal Reserve Bank. But this isn't stock in the traditional sense. These banks can't sell their stocks or use them as collateral. They don't have control over the Reserve Bank's operations, nor do they pocket the Reserve Bank's profits. Their ownership is more symbolic, a sign of their membership in the system. Now, while the Federal Reserve Banks are owned by these private banks, they're overseen by a board of governors. These 7 individuals are appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate, ensuring public accountability. They set the general policy for the Federal Reserve, while the reserve banks handle the day-to-day operations. As for the original banks that were part of the Federal Reserve System, they were a diverse group, spanning from coast to coast. They included banks big and small, national and state chartered, a reflection of America's varied financial landscape. So, in essence, the Federal Reserve is a unique blend of public oversight and private ownership. It's a system that has evolved over time, responding to the changing needs of the US economy and the wider world. It's a system that, for all its complexity, remains firmly rooted in the principles of its founding. Fast forward to the present day, and the Federal Reserve's role has only grown in importance. Picture a colossal entity, a veritable titan of economic might that stands at the helm of the nation's financial system. That, dear listeners, is the modern Federal Reserve. This institution has evolved to shoulder an array of responsibilities. It is no longer just a custodian of the nation's gold reserves or a lender of last resort. In this era, the Federal Reserve is the architect of our monetary policy. It crafts the very blueprint that steers the economy, deciding when to turn the knobs of interest rates or when to pump more money into the system. The Federal Reserve also plays the role of a vigilant guard, overseeing the nation's banks, ensuring they play by the rules and stepping in when they falter. It's like a lighthouse in a stormy sea, guiding vessels and preventing them from crashing onto the rocks of financial crisis. In the realm of economics, the Federal Reserve is not just a player, it's the conductor, orchestrating the symphony of the nation's financial system. Its decisions ripple through the economy, affecting everything from the price of your morning coffee to the strength of your retirement savings. Today, the Federal Reserve stands as a pillar of the American economy, its influence felt far and wide. So, who actually owns the Federal Reserve? A question that has been asked throughout history, and the answer is not as straightforward as one might think. The Federal Reserve, an institution of great power and influence, is not wholly owned by the federal government, nor is it a mere reserve. Its unique structure is a blend of both private and public elements. On one hand, the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks are owned by private banks within their districts, which buy shares as part of their membership. On the other hand, the Board of Governors, an agency of the federal government, oversees the entire system. This delicate balance of power of public and private has been the bedrock on which this institution stands. The Federal Reserve, a powerful institution shrouded in mystery, is not as federal as you might think, nor is it a simple reserve. Its true ownership lies in the hands of both the American government and private banks, a testament to its complex and fascinating history.